Good evening, guests, honoured guests, I should say, and colleagues and friends. It's a real pleasure for me today to introduce Professor Muyiwa Oyinlola for his inaugural lecture, not least because he's part of our team, so really, really special for us in our faculty. I love the title, Going Together to Go Far, and about your pathway to impacting sustainable development in Africa, a region which is very close to my heart because it's roots for my family in that area. So, Muyiwa, Professor of Innovation for Sustainable Development, a chartered engineer, and director for the Institute of Energy and Sustainable Development. Professor Oyinlola is passionate about bringing together positive change to the African continent. He has a strong track record of facilitating collaboration among appropriate stakeholders, co-creating sustainable interventions, and providing support in the development of homegrown solutions to African challenges. He's led multi-institutional, as well as multi-institutional, multidisciplinary international consortia in drafting, winning and successfully executing research projects cumulatively worth over £5 million, including a current project as co-investigator on a project with Digital Liar, sponsored by Innovate UK, looking at digitalisation and automation of medicines, research and development and manufacturing worth. And I have to state this explicitly, not just a more than 1.3 million pounds, but £1,331,543. So really exciting. His previous projects have been in areas such as sustainable waste management, sustainable built environment, digital transformation, building capacity of youth, and improving energy access. Muyiwa collaborates with transdisciplinary teams to ensure that project outcomes are interdisciplinary and encompass both technological and social factors. He places particular emphasis on identifying and integrating the socio-cultural considerations which are required for the long-term success of projects in low-income, low and middle-income countries. Muyiwa has over 50 peer-reviewed academic publications covering a really wide remit, so really, really exciting. He holds a BEng in mechanical engineering from Ahmadu Bello University, a master's in renewable energy engineering from Kingston University, an MA in education from De Montfort University, and a PhD in engineering from the University of Warwick. So you can see the breadth of his talent, and I'm glad to hear that we've got some young and budding doctoral students somewhere in the background. So really nice to hear to have a broad range of guests in the audience today. So I'd like to welcome Professor Muyiwa Oyinlola to present his inaugural lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shishma, and thank you to everyone here. I'm blown away by the sheer number of people that are here today. And usually, the first thing I do is to try to demystify my name, just to show that it's not as complicated as it is. So I've done that there. It's Muyiwa Oyinlola. Okay? So I was born on the university campus in Zaria, and growing up, I had various ambitions, like wanted to become a pilot, wanted to become a businessman. But there was one career that I didn't want to. And I'm sure you guessed right. It was academia. Okay? So my parents were academia, I had people all around me as academia. But here I am today, a few decades later, giving an inaugural lecture. So what I'll do today is just to tell you a story of how I moved from antagonist to advocate. I get my slides to move. Yep, okay. So I'll tell you basically what happened, how I moved, how I made that switch, and how I'm now enjoying a career in academia. Of course, in the next lecture, I'll be telling you a bit of my contribution, probably the boring stuff, and then tell you a bit of my plans for the future. So as I said, I was born on the university campus. Those are my cousins. If you look around the room, there are quite a few of them here. I'm sure you recognize them. Interestingly, three of us, one from each of the families represented there has a PhD. And so I thought that was actually taking me away from academia, but apparently it didn't number me. It was actually pushing me to academia. So fast forward 11 years later, I was shipped to boarding school in Lagos. So I attended King's College, Lagos. And then I had a new family. So my dad's immediate elder brother became the youngest of 6 siblings. So it was very interesting. My second dad was an executive, boardroom executive. So I guess that whole networking, confidence, and co impacted on me quite a lot. And so in secondary school, had loads of friends, had the best friend who was visually impaired, and we immediately after secondary school, we went into music business. Very, very interesting. So I wasn't singing, I wasn't dancing, I was doing more of the management. And so yeah, I did that for a few years. So in and out of university, I kept on attending, going back to Lagos. I did the barest minimum to get through university. Every holiday, I was back in Lagos with my friends looking for business. So the first gig we had, 16-year-old boys, it was about £2,000 at the time, over, much more than his professor's salary. So again, there was money, there was fame, life was beautiful. I kept on in that. I kept in that light, and it was in that process that I met my beautiful wife, Tammy, who has been my rock and stay since then and has always made me look good. So including my slides today, it's all her work. So thank you, Tammy, for all you've done. So, thank you. So I think that experience in the music industry taught me two things. Okay, one was the importance of giving value, and number two was the importance of networks. And I think those have stayed with me all through. So we were two young boys. We went into the studio, created content for agencies, advertising content for radios, and we just gave it around, met our networks, and in a very short period, we had a very big gig. So I thought that just showed that regardless of whatever, once you were able to give value and you had the right networks, you were fine. So I did that, kept on going. After university, went back into music full time and kept on doing that. But I guess what I would say is that the seed had been sown already. So 2 years later into that, I just felt incomplete, and I thought my dad and mom said, "Won't you do your master's?" I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And I came to the UK and started master's. I said, "Okay, I did master's." Maybe after that, myself and Dami came to the UK. We'll go back, and I kid you not, the day of my dad. Before then, my dad had just tried a PhD, so I applied to two universities, Brunel and Warwick, and on the day of my dissertation, my dissertation for my MSc, as soon as I got back to my hostel, got my to my room, opened my laptop, I saw a response from Stanshire from Warwick inviting me for a PhD. So as a man of faith, I thought, okay, this most likely is something here. I did that, and that's how I started my my PhD. Okay, I will carry on with that, but I would just like to pause and give pay tribute to quite a lot of people. So hopefully you all have your booklet. There's a longer list there, and I've been able to articulate what everybody has done. But I think I've met phenomenal people along the journey so far, and as Newton said, if I have seen further, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And indeed, my journey has been rapid and impactful, but it's simply because I've been able to stand on the shoulders of giants. So thank you. I know quite a few of them have sent their apologies, but I see a few in the room. I can see Rafi. Thank you very much. So here I see Bosun, my honorable minister. He's been a good friend and basically giving me Co-Creation Hub, which is Africa's largest innovation hub as a collaborator. So usually there's really nothing we can say we want to do with Co-Creation Hub that we can't achieve. So as we go through, you see CC Hub has been a collaborator all through. And thankfully, he's now the Minister of the Federal Republic and doing bigger things. And we're able to tap into that network as well. So thank you to all my mentors. So as I said, I got to the University of Warwick, and again, it was just PhD, but I started getting into quite a lot of sustainability things. Okay, so firstly, there was Green Steps at Warwick, which was more a guinea pig to solidify the Warwick Monash Alliance, Monash University in Australia. And so they brought their sustainability training there. I was part of that. And that's me presenting at the launch of the Alliance in London. And other things like climate cake, just involved in various. So those things pushed me. And before I finished my PhD, I just found myself very much in love with the whole sustainability journey. And so I carried on. I wasn't sure what I was going to do after PhD, thinking of going back to Nigeria. But between submission and Viva, I made a few applications, 3 applications actually, 2 research fellows and 1 lecturer position. And all 3 called me for the interview. I came. The other 2, interestingly, I didn't get. The 2 research fellows I didn't get. And then I came here I think that was my first interview. Very, very glowing interview. So it was 6 people. We had the Pro Vice Chancellor, head of school, head of research, research institute director, people. So it was 6 panels. So I felt drained after. But, yeah. So, but what I said in the interview, and my mission was clear. I said, what my research will be on Africa. I have a passion for Africa. I've grown up in Africa. There's a lot of disparity. There's a lot of work to do. And all my grants and co will be mainly focused on Africa. And so I carried on and then the day I got a rejection from one of the RA positions, I slept up and I saw a missed call when I woke up. And I called the number back and it was Warren Manning and was offering me the position to come here. And that's how I started here at DMU. And I'm actually very grateful because I think DMU has given me a platform to be able to do what I want to do. Okay, so I don't think many institutions will give you the opportunity to do. So when I started doing my research in Africa, as you see my next paper, very unconventional, but I think my people here at DMU, especially in my institute and the faculty, just let me be to do my crazy things, and I'm glad it paid out. So what happened? So my first project was inspired by news coverage. So we just had our first son. So barely 2 months after I started at DMU, we had our first son, and that's why if you look at the brochure, you see one person is blood there. She intentionally blurred herself just so that you don't see how she looked when she was pregnant. So it wasn't nothing effervescent there. But we had our son we had first grandchild for my mother-in-law. And so we had the 2 moms at home. And if you know how Nigerian parents are, our TV station was on Nigerian channels, it's called Nigerian television. It was just back to back. And interestingly, I saw this news coverage about a house built with bottles. And I thought, oh, wow, that's interesting. And it came back to me that one of the challenges we have in Africa is that we don't document as much of the things that happen. And what you find out is that people keep on reinventing the wheel. And I said, I will want to do something about this. Firstly, understand what the thermal performance is, because I just finished PhD in heat and mass transfer, understand that. And so what I did was I called my friends in Nigeria, build me a small wall and ship to me. Very bad idea. By the time we finished, three people could not lift that. And so I said, okay, interesting, we'll see. But in that time, I thought, okay, let's go for the whole house and go. And so I looked on DMU's directory, found a gentleman called Timothy Whitehead, who was into product design and the likes for low-income communities. And I sent him an email, and he responded almost immediately that he's on paternity leave now. That makes two of us. But yeah, we can talk about it later. We didn't talk about it, but a few months later, I said, oh, this is opportunity for funding. Should we try your bottle house? And that's how we started. We did the first studies and then we were able to get funding from the Royal Academy of Engineering to go full scale. And so what you see there is our project, which was conceived in 2016, where we were able to demonstrate using plastic bottles and other upcycled materials like scaffolding, waste tiles to build houses. And so it was quite a very interesting project because obviously interdisciplinary, as you'll see in the next slide. But what we wanted to do was to address some of the challenges. So number one is that waste infrastructure is deficit in these places. So you find a lot of litter on the streets. Secondly, what you find is that you need skills. You need to be able to, in the building sector, you find out that people do things, haphazardly sometimes. And so the other issue was housing challenge was a big one. And so we came together to do this. Thirdly, if you are familiar, power and water, these are quite difficult to come by. And so what we did was to try and say we want to build a self-sufficient home, characterize what the needs of energy are or is, and the water. And so together with our friends, people like Yewande Akinola helped us design the water collection, rainwater harvesting. And so this is all the people in the project. Basically, what we did was to bring together a multidisciplinary team. So we had architects, Amal, there. We had product designer team. We had engineers of different disciplines. We had material scientists, structural engineers, and like. So it was coming together to see how that all fits together. But I think what was the most interesting thing was the opportunity to involve students. So thankfully, DMU had this wonderful program called DMU Global, and I was able to take 30 students to work on that. 17 from DMU, and then we had 3 from Plymouth University who were collaborating with us. We had 10 from Ahmadu University, which was local, and we all were together in the same place, all worked, and it was just fantastic to see the brilliant ideas that these young people came up with. So we implemented some of them, and it was just, you can see pictures there, very, very interesting. We also had an opportunity to visit Parliament to just monitor dissemination and awareness of what we were doing. So as I said, again, part of the contribution of this one was more in the area of it's a case study, we use it as a case study. How can this be transferred to other sectors? Okay, so bringing that collaboration, that involving students, also the dynamics between local and international students, and it was always a two-way street. Okay, so that was this again. So stats, we built a house somewhere midway between 2 types of houses that are there. But yeah, affordable. And then part of what that whole thing is the ability for collaborators to also do what they want. You need to make sure people are doing what they want. So I saddled all the collaborators with responsibility to do their own work, and let's try and make a paper out of everything you do. So these are the guys from Plymouth who did most of the structural stuff. As you can see, we did some computational work. We tested it at the component level and at the component level and component level. Did quite a lot. So basically, creating new knowledge to show how these buildings will fail if they were going to fail, and what the whole best optimization for structural performance will be. Okay, so that's that one. That's another paper we had. And then thirdly, one of the things we realized when Tim and I went for the initial co-creation, because what we did was we went into the community just before we started, engaged with them, trying to understand what do they want in houses, okay? And so we had a lot, we interviewed quite a lot of them, were there for about a week. And what we realized that was very clear, firstly, was that the temperatures indoors became very unbearable. Okay, so when it was dry season, they all slept outdoors. And so we needed a solution for that. And so that's part of the brief we gave to the team, like the architects, the engineers, how do you ensure the thermal performance of the house is optimized? And so we implemented all that in there, things like ventilation, the orientation, even as little as the paint, the color of the paint indoors, just to ensure thermal comfort. And we did, after the house, we did post-occupancy surveys. So we had we had sensors, we also had quantitative and qualitative, so basically measuring and also asking questions. And what you see here is the results from quantitative, and it's clear here that the bottle house all performed better. Still hotter, okay, so you had that in different categories of thermal comfort. However, it was much less than that. But what was interesting about this is that the residents felt it was too cold. Well, not too cold, it was actually cold. But even though the stats say that it's unbearable, they had to wear jumpers indoors. And that's because their bodies have adapted to the temperature there. So that's another contribution in that sense. And then we had the social side, where I can see Professor Adifila there led us in that paper in terms of user acceptance. So we built the house, we had a book for this, a guest book for people to sign, and everybody was passing fantastic idea, roll it out across the country, blah, blah, blah. Good stuff. However, when we engaged with the community, they didn't want it. And the reason simply is that it was a status thing. They felt they will be looked at as people who were poor and could not afford a normal house. And so if it was going to fly, the bottles had to be covered. So that was a very interesting thing. But it was interesting to go through. The other interesting thing was in the West, we are trying to have en-suites where you have a bathroom in the toilet in your room, right? They wanted their toilet outside. So that's another interesting thing. And so I think that just illustrates the point that you find quite a lot of projects, international development projects in quotes, that their performance, and after that it's abandoned. Okay? Because what we're doing is exporting our way of life, okay, without that co-creation. And so what we've been able to achieve there is just that whole co-creation and building that that understanding of what people really want. Okay, so that whole social cultural aspect is very, very strong, and you need that for user acceptance. I think the other thing I wanted to draw here is for this paper and this paper they were led by PhD students, not my PhD students, had nothing to do with Bottle House, but were quite interested in it. And I think that just goes to show you that generally as humans, we are committed to a cause that is better than us. And it was a good experience. I think I can see one of them in here, Mariam, I believe. It's a good thing to see that you don't just do stuff for yourself, but you're able to empower others to take that forward. I don't know what they will do next, but I guess it's being able to think strategically to ensure that what you do is not just and doesn't just end at you, but it's able to go further. Okay, so that is that's the bottle house. Another project we did again together with my good friend Tim and with Co-Creation Hub as strong partners is the circular plastic. So what is the challenge? Two things. Number one is the same thing I mentioned before, which is the plastic waste management. Infrastructure is zero. Okay. The second thing is that whole supply chain logistics. So if you know anything about Africa, very widespread. If you think about the rural areas, getting something there is just can be a nightmare. Some places have no roads, you have to go on canoes and the likes. And so if you think about, let me give you an instance. So for example, you have a hospital, there you have the beds. Most likely the chances are the beds were imported from the West, okay? And so say the weight of the bed breaks or something. You need to think about how do you replace that? So do you order it from the manufacturer all the way, coming all the way, how does it get to that place? What's the time lag and all that? And so what this project was is how do you empower decentralized manufacturing and distributed manufacturing. And so what we did in this project is how do we take plastic waste, convert them to a resource for 3D printing, and so locally you can 3D print your products. Okay? So in that case, all you needed to do was to have internet, and then that is the file is sent, you print it, and then you replace your data. Again, funded initially by the Royal Academy of Engineering, and then we did a follow-up with Team LED, funded by UKRI. And together with Loughborough University and Aston University, and then we had STEM Cafe also by Kitchen. And so this project, what we did was, well, I tell you what we were trying to do firstly is looking at what's out there in the market. There are quite a few things out there in the market, and obviously at a price point which are not accessible to these guys in Africa. Okay, and so we are trying to see how do we develop local skills, local processes, how do we use things like a water pump photo or other things. So that's what we were doing on this project. Again, we also tried to characterize the filaments that were produced from this process and see how they perform, what's the strength, how does it compare to virgin filaments. Okay, simple process is you collect your waste plastics, you clean them, grind them, dry them, and then extrude them into a filament. Okay, as simple as that looks, one of the things we realized was that extrusion was a very, very big headache, okay? Because you need the right environment. In the West, you can have a lab and so, but if you think about it in those places, you can't have controlled environments. And so what you find out is that if you cool too quickly, it will be brittle like glass, okay? And it's useless. If you cool too slowly, what then happens is that it sags. And so what that is that it doesn't fit your 3D printer. It will clog your 3D printer. So that's part of the work we are doing, that whole modeling and the likes. Okay, so that's what we did on this project. And thanks to my team and the folks from Loughborough, we came up with product concepts. And what you realize about 3D printing is that it's the economies of one, not the economies of scale. And when you're talking about rural areas, it makes economical sense to mass produce for these people. Our current manufacturing processes will not work for this, or our current supply chain. And so looking at this, these are some of the concepts. Again, went into community, understood what people were doing, and came up with some solution. First one is for the riverine community called Makuku. They do a lot of sand dredging using buckets. A simple 3D printer adapter, 3D printed adapter will make that much more effective. Again, you can do that. You don't have to produce quite a number of this. You have a 3D printer, you produce that, and then people can use this for whenever it breaks, that's that. The next one is the adaptable baler. So they have leaky canoes and then thermosiphon syringe, 3D printed, and it can come. Here, what you see is people peeling tubers. Well, two things you can easily notice from here. Number one is that you can see kids there, and so you might think of the health and safety. The second thing is, again, how do you measure what to peel off? So you have the you want to peel as just the skin and little of the produce itself. And so what they're able to come up with is adapters for that, and that's adaptable. Okay, again, so these are just examples of things. So that's using the matrix to ensure that it's cooling, evaporative cooling. And then here you have fruit pickers. So usually they'll use a stick. The fruits will fall to the ground. Some will be damaged, okay, and that reduces their income. However, what we did was that adapter with a net, and then it falls in there. So simple solutions, but makes a massive difference to some of the poorest of society. So that's the circular plastic, and that was just a way to demonstrate how we could do that. Then looking at entrepreneurship and employment side of things. Okay, so the third one, I've talked in plastic quite a lot today, is dish plastic. Again, Cooperation Hub, iHub, and then we had Bongo High from the east, so it was geographically spread across Africa. And what we were doing is, if you know about Africa, there are quite a lot of entrepreneurial and innovative people. That spirit is quite big there. And what we saw was that there has been quite a lot of these startups springing up across the country. And in my discussions with Bosum, they incubated the first, I think the first in Nigeria, and one of the first on the continent, who was using innovations for plastic waste collection. And it was a few years, but they still hadn't scaled as you would have thought. So we thought there might be a systematic problem here. So let's look at this. Let's see what's happening. Secondly, it was a case of a lot of people were doing the same thing. So there was a lot of duplication. Okay, why don't we work together? Again, let's go together to go far. All right. So we put this project together, and we are fortunate to be funded by UKRI through the GCRF stuff. We had people from across the continent, Net, and then we were able to engage with two sets of people. Okay, first set was the consumers, okay, which usually are not people are not really engaged with going into the literature. So we were able to survey about 1,500 households across Kenya, Nigeria, Namibia, Zambia, and Rwanda. Okay, so we did that just to understand what the perception of consumers are and the likes. Because if you think about it, right, you think about the environment, you say environment. Here in the West, yes, we can think about that. But those in the global South are still trying to get their bread and butter. Actually, butter is luxury, just the bread. So you think about that and you think of environment, so it really doesn't make sense. So it's about understanding those sort of nuances, all right? And so what we did was do that. It was supposed to be a 4-year project initially, but we went for 18 months because of COVID and all the costs that came with that. But as you see, well spread geographically across sub-Saharan Africa, and just try to understand what the state of the art is. And we did quite well with dissemination in terms of that. We had actually did a book together with my good friend and colleague, Shem Kolade, and we had contributors. I can see them all across the room. So that was able to disseminate. That we did quite a lot of high-level engagement with countries and national levels, multilateral organizations like AFDB, UNEP, and the likes. And actually, most of that results and has led to different things in terms of policy documents. So the UNEP report on circularity and sustainability, I was privileged to input to that based on this project. AFDB to reach out to us, and there's a UNIDO document that is ongoing now. So that was quite good, and yeah, it's very interesting projects. Nothing had come out, but in terms of the engagement, it was just phenomenal. So that's that. So I think the fourth project I will say, which is the last I'm going to detail with, is a British Council project, Innovation for African Universities. Again, my co-creation hub partners are here. I see Professor Esther Kelabi, who is surprising is here. So she was the director of Pan African University in Nigeria, and she was the Nigeria partner then, and now she's at Newcastle University. And Professor Adifila as well from Staffordshire University, now Buckinghamshire University. So again, it was, so I've been working on this plastic for a while, and one of the things that kept on coming out is that necessity to build capacity. And so just after COVID, I think I was bored and I enrolled for a master's in education practice. So this was a good project to tie into that since it was hard to do with education. So this was my I used part of this for my MA dissertation. And so what we did here was just to see how we could foster a thriving ecosystem for innovation and entrepreneurship in universities. So how do you get students to get them? So basically, how do you catch them young? And so we went once again. Firstly, what we did was to have social science studies, qualitative and quantitative, to understand what's happening out there. There's the student side of things, there's the lecturer side of things, there's the government side of things. The government said entrepreneurship innovation is compulsory, they've made the policy, okay, and in their books it's a tick box, okay, so that's fine. The lecturers are doing their stuff, but then you have the students and students say, really, is there anything like that? So it was just and then sometimes it was good to have all these people in the same room, and it's just the reaction on that, similar with other projects. Having them in the same room and seeing their reaction, oh, you're doing that, oh, this is happening, it was just very interesting. So I guess that's the main thing about collaboration. Okay, so the more we work together, the more we sit together, the less surprises we have. And so we did that project, firstly understanding that, and then based on that, we designed programs. Again, together with Professor Shem Kolade was here, entrepreneurship in that space. Co-creation also helped us deliver those master classes and the like. So what you see here is we work with 4 universities: University of Lagos, Ahmadu Bello University, University of Nigeria, and Obafemi Awolowo University. And what it was to give them problem-based learning, how do you inspire them to work? And it was quite good. So, for example, UNN, University of Nigeria, was saddled with having a 3D printer, build a 3D printer from electronic waste. And that was quite, so that was good. So what we did also was to have an innovation challenge where we told the students to submit their ideas for innovation for plastic waste. And we had about 70 entries. We had 6 finalists, and then the final group that won, which was very impressive. In a very short time, they proposed using drones, GIS, and artificial intelligence to identify plastic waste in hard-to-reach locations. And they're undergrad students. They rented a drone to actually test their ideas, and you can see pictures there. So that was very good, and we were able to take the lead to a side event in Kigali just during Chogom. So that was good, and we've been able to have 2 papers, one led by myself and the other led by Abim Bola, there to look at assessing the participation in circular plastic economy. So that's for circular plastic. So the other ones I will just go through very briefly, which is, firstly, was blackout chasing. If you know about Nigeria, we have a lot of blackouts. And what my friend Barry was trying to do was to understand what the costs, to quantify the perceived cost, frequency, and duration of power outages in Nigeria. And also talking to Discos to see how you can provide power as a service. And so that will involve looking at putting solar panels or infrastructure in homes, and they pay for that. The other one is I've been involved in Sigma, looking at sustainability, inclusiveness, and governance of mini grids in Africa, where we are saying that, again, led by Subesh Bhattacharya, there are quite a lot of mini grids that have come up over time, but yeah, there's still a lot of work to do there. And so we've just been looking at that from different perspectives to just see what's out there and make recommendations. JIVO, again, this is a follow-up from Ditch, but led by Warwick. And what this project is about, as it's still ongoing, is looking at a particular organization that were identified during that Dish Plastic project and just supporting them to, in terms of the use of digital innovations to make the plastic value chain more circular. And then I have a PhD student who is working on that full time. That's good. And then I don't say much about this because this Shushma had mentioned this previously. And then finally, this is not funded, but it's a condition of my PhD work, and I've had PhD students, one of them is here, looking at solar thermal collectors. We have an enormous amount of energy reaching us from the sun, enough to power all our needs. However, our technology hasn't moved enough to be able to harness that energy. So we still keep trying to push the boundaries of science to ensure we're doing that in an efficient and sustainable manner. So that's what I've been working on with my PhD students, from solar thermal collectors in terms of parabolic troughs or flat plate collectors. And I talked about my future plans, if some people don't drag me out of academia. So I've enjoyed what I've done so far, and I intend to continue research and development in that area. So, and I've termed it innovation for sustainable development. So basically, how do you make things better and how do you make the environment and people's lives better? So I'll continue that. However, what I've realized is we write a lot of papers as academics, and that's the drive, obviously, promotion, we want to write papers. But I don't know how many times, again, I'm a policy maker here. I don't know how many times you go into papers to read, okay? So how many times you go into journals to read articles? So I think as academics, we need to not move, but also make our research accessible to policymakers. So I want to do quite a lot of that. And then, yeah, to foster collaborations to do that. So you'll be pleased to hear that I've come to the end of my lecture. But before you go, I'll give you some key takeaways. Firstly, reflecting on my journey, I would say the main drivers of my journey has been mentorship and collaboration. So both, different ways, up, down, sideways. Okay, so you need to mentor people to be better and to do more, and then you need to collaborate to be able to go far. Okay, secondly, based on what I said, adaptability and homegrown interventions are essential for addressing sustainable development goals efficiently. So we can't have a one-size-fits-all. We need to ensure that we adapt and make sure that these are homegrown and genuine. That's the only way locals will have a stake in that. Thirdly, again, I said this, you have to balance environmental consideration with socioeconomic realities. Okay, we just released the paper by Shane Holiday, which was looking at the business models, secular business models. Okay, the economics have to make sense. Okay, the person in Africa in that village is interested in his next meal. Okay, he doesn't care about the environment for now. All right. Fourthly, sociocultural factors play an active role in the successful sustainable development project. So again, as I said, I gave the example of the acceptance of the bottle house and all that. So it's a case of you need to think about that sociocultural aspect, all right? The fact that you want an answer doesn't mean the next person or person there wants the same, all right? And I just said this, we need to engage with policymakers as academics. And finally, real-world problems are complex and require interventions that reflect this multidisciplinary nature. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that for us to go far, we need to go together.
Can I just say, Muyiwa, that everybody else's losses when you didn't get those jobs have definitely been there. Acknowledge that. What a brilliant talk, really, really important. Who would have thought that taking waste, you can go on to build and create amazing things, and the puns are intended there. So fantastic. Really well done. Thank you very much. Questions from the audience, please. Done.
Thank you so much. I was really inspired by your lecture. Thank you. So my question is about scalability. Some of the projects you've done are successful, but what's your drive or your vision to scale that across different locations?
Okay, yeah, thanks for that question. And I think one of the things we wanted to do is not to scale, but to build capacity. So we don't want to give you fish, we want to teach you how to fish. Okay? So the idea has always been, how do you empower local capacity? All right. So as soon as we did the project, this is what we did. We tried to document as much as possible, get people interested, and to, again, we're academics, we're not development agencies. Yeah. It's more about getting people to learn the process and adapt the process. So, for example, the bottle house, we got the local contractor who has been working in that space, has been doing that. And then also based on the publicity, I get people reaching out to me by emails, okay, I want to do this, what's the best practice, and all those sort of things. So that's what this project's about, in terms of that. I did not necessarily to scale this specific project.
Yeah, thank you. So how do you track the impact? And also keep an eye on, I mean, you say you're not into scaling.
Yeah.
How are the local people embracing that change?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any challenges.
So again, most of the time when you start these things, you probably are not thinking about that. In retrospect, I can think of things I could have done to track impact. Again, it's just here and all here and there. We didn't really track impact, but now we're trying to do that in terms of always asking. So like I go back to that bottle house virtually every year, there in August, asking questions, talk to the local contractors, I don't think they're trained, and then just trying to put that down again. Also, we have an impact team here at DMU, so I've been trying to work with them to develop systems to track impact.
I'll go to the back and then you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just, sorry, before you start, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Elias Makide. Thank you very much for that brilliant presentations. I just want, it's a direct question. I want to know, did you build any business from this? The follow-up question would be, how can we build businesses? Because I'm very keen about the business side of things, because I've seen all these beautiful things. By now, you should be a billionaire. So, have you done that? And if you have not done that, how do we do that? Because we keep on seeing all these fantastic things, but most people are still broke.
Thank you very much. A very important question. No, I didn't build any business. I actually did not try to. Well, I guess in life you have to choose your battles. Well, true, because I think for me, I just realized that you can't serve two masters. So at that time, I was focused on impact, focused on my career. I've been in business world. I know how it can be drawing. Okay, now that I'm a professor, maybe I can. But yeah, I did learn business. I think again, I'll be looking at Shushma here, is that this is, and I don't know if Boston will say anything about this, but this is what our investors are supposed to be, all right? These solutions cannot go far if we don't build business out of them, all right? And so it's the work of our investors to have that support. We have the support systems. I don't know how effective they are. I've not really used them, but again, we can't do everything, all right? We need to have those systems in place. And I think that's part of what our project, the other project was looking at, is how do you ensure that that whole thing is there? How do you also sit with businesses outside? Okay, so you have a lot of investors out there. How do they come in and look for projects and take that forward? Again, you see a lot of undergrad projects, a lot of master's projects that can be very good businesses. We can't eat the whole cake, but we need to have those systems and those collaborations in place. Again, it goes back to my title. We need to go together to go fast. So let those that are interested in business take up that.
Oh, yeah, hi.
Thank you.
So yeah, my name is Ayodeji. I'm a friend to Professor Muyiwa. I also was almost going into academia to apply, but took the business route. And there's less impact in that space, to be honest. Yeah, our team, we're mindful and we need academics. We need academia to bring the ideas. So my question sort of is a follow-on almost to him. Beyond the local contractors, was there any interaction, say, with the government, the local government, or Ministry of Housing, or the state, to disseminate the information, disseminate all this data you have, and to create more of an impact?
Yes, so we actually went to the National Assembly, House of Assembly, the upper house, and we met with the chair of the housing committee, and that's it there. Yeah, so we went to, so we disseminated it to government. I think the main thing was fire. We could not test for the fire resistance and safety and all that. So that's why one of the things we were supposed to do a follow-on, I believe, on that. But again, we haven't done that. But yeah, so we disseminated it widely. And it's still being disseminated. But I guess we need to have that whole standard and that characterization in place.
My name is Olasema, is my name. I'm here in Ghana faculty. I have a question. So I think my question is around your journey, because it's an inspiration to all of us within the university. And of course, given the context of having a Black professor in the UK, we have less than 200 Black professors in the UK, out of maybe probably 25,000 plus professors in the UK. So I wanted to hear your advice, because you know about PhD students, obviously supporting, mentoring them as well. Whereas we have for Black academics, African academics, for example, that are in UK universities, obviously, say Tridents as well. What advice will you have for them?
Okay, thank you for that question. So I think I'll go back. So when I made this slide, I told them that this is my best slide. They said, look at this slide. You see that this is a slide of different races, different genders, different everything, okay? And so what I wasn't mentored by Black academics. As I said, I think the main thing, the two things that I will say for my journey is that mentorship, okay? So for example, this was my first line manager. There was one that gave me the job. And when I got here, he said, okay, look, he brought out the charts for the pay scale. That I can take 10 years to get from lecturer to the end of senior lecturer and then go that. However, what we want for you is that in 7 years, you should be a professor. Okay? And then this is and you need to work towards that. Okay? So make sure you're doing they're not just writing grants. If you're writing grants and failing, it means that you're not writing the right grants or to the right people. Okay? So he's British. Okay? All right. So I don't want to go down that route of black, white, again, because I've been mentored by all sorts of people, all right? And so I think it's that collaboration and value, okay? So again, when I've presented my work, you've seen that papers, grants, that's what the That's the currency of academia. You understand? So I think, in fairness to probably not say that. Yeah, but I think in the UK here, what you say is that it's if you have the value, nobody can deny you. All right. I think it's a fair society. That's my own experience, and I might be wrong, but that's my own in academia so far. That's my own experience.
Thank you. We've got 3 people there. So. I was going to go to the lady first, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Good. It's good to be lady then. Okay, so I'm Abu Zainab, and I'm a senior lecturer from architecture. And of course, I know Muyiwa extremely well, like since for so many years and through work. But really, I would like your reflection around, because I know like you're really great at collaboration, and it's almost like you're bringing so many different disciplines together, and you're bringing academia, industry. Is really great. So it's almost like your own reflection. You're a hardcore engineer, kind of like someone with materials in labs and so on and so forth. So what are the lessons that you have learned from those collaboration and from different disciplines and people who are doing very much kind of like qualitative work, working with people and everything, and then you are very hardcore engineer. So how that kind of shaped maybe the career, or like any reflection that you would like to share on that?
First reflection is that you have to have it tests your patience. That's the first reflection. But jokes apart, I think what I'll say is you have to. So I'll go back to our dish plastic project. Okay, so I had the first meeting. All of us were there. Came up with a fancy agenda. Saying, "Well, this is what we're going to do." Blah blah blah. I don't know if you remember, but my good friend here, the Honourable Minister, said, "Guys, wait. Let's go around the table and ask everybody what they want out of this project." And that was a very illuminating experience. Okay, everybody had a different agenda, very different agenda. You understand? So, and then I think that was what just shaped the. So it's first, I'll say, understanding what everybody's agenda is, what they want. Okay, some people wanted papers, we gave them papers. Some people wanted networks. Right, we gave them networks. Some people wanted further grants. We gave them further grants. You understand? So it's about understanding what people want and ensuring that they are doing what they want, and they are not forcing them to do what they don't want to do.
Good advice. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Moses Olufemi Shokunbi. So I'm in health and life sciences. Firstly, I would like to congratulate you for a very impressive inaugural lecture. My first question, I would say it's more like a comment, is when you said the people, when you built the house, the people that it was built for, they weren't really, impressed because they felt they looked poor. So my comment is having to, realize that you needed the public involvement and the people with the lived experience. So that was very, very, something very important that you came up with, because without that, you couldn't have that project moving forward. So that's very impressive. Another thing is that I know you said you're still considering impact. Have you ever thought about maybe the health implications of using plastics, in carrying out most of this work? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments and questions. So yes, so I think one of the things we did was that make sure that the inside was like a normal house, so it was plastered. So that was that. In terms of health, no, actually. No, I haven't considered that.
So that may be in the next line of study.
I'm Abhishek Gauri from Muyiwa's colleague, one of them from the School of Engineering and Sustainability. Brilliant presentation, firstly. And my question is mainly about your thing going far. Probably you are trying to go far in Africa. Being from Africa and me looking away from UK to Africa. I think Africa is a very rigid inertia in terms of its passion for innovation. That's what I feel. We did a small project through GCRF in terms of how far we can take startups. That was in Nigeria. And they started saying that a lot of innovation fails. Probably, and yesterday there was a Royal Academy of Engineering seminar hosted by their CEO. And there was a lady from Uganda, I can't pronounce the name, Makati University, very prominent university in Uganda. And she was saying that they are very passionate about innovation, but then the adoption rate is very poor. And probably that's where I want to take you far in terms of what is the gap. I mean, we are seeing the political situation is very dire. South Africa has a leading country with mission. Now they have coalition, so they can't do much. As far as politically, we don't go, but at least in terms of aspirations of academics and researchers and with business people, where is Africa going? And unless that is handled, we can't go far.
Okay, so I'm glad you have that question, and I'm also glad we have, firstly, the founder of Africa's largest innovation hub, who has incubated a lot of startups in Africa, and he's now holds the position of Minister of Communications, Digital Economy, and Innovation. So I'm sure you do closing remarks, but please add a response to his questions. So I think that I've been looking at the reports. I think the trajectory of innovation has been on the upward rise. What has happened is that I've seen that you have startups in Africa. However, when they become successful, they change their headquarters or their address to a different country. Yeah. You understand? So most of those things are going to glass. Again, I'm not well qualified. I can't speak when a much more qualified person who has been in that space for over 15 years is to speak. But personally, I don't think it's rigid. I think there's been a lot of leapfrogging. I think you've seen quite a lot. So when I came to this country, the financial sector in Nigeria was far advanced than the UK. Okay, it's just catching up. In fact, it's not catching up. It's still advanced. All right. So there are different sectors like that. Okay. I don't think it's slow. I think opportunities. Again, I will defer to Honourable Minister.
This gentleman here, and then the last question from you. So,
okay, mine is very quick. My name is Sheldon. I just want to bring you back, to the comment about scalability and have you built a business. I wonder whether you are actually understating the impact of your work, because while you have not built a business for yourself, you have just told us how you have worked with a lot of startups, scores of them across the entire continent. And now you have, organized training and capacity building activities. So I just want to ask you, taking you back there, what's your reflection on those kind of capacity building that you have undertaken and training and the prospect, of scalability and businesses, coming? Yeah, thank you.
I think there are prospects there, but there are just some prospects I want to explore.
I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. However, there is potential for spin-outs. That's commercialisation, because there is that gap in terms of research, commercialisation. You've got to policy as well. So it's that middle step. We need to get to that. Yeah. Thank you. Last question to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I think mine is just a comment. So my name is Dr. Tumisha. I think I'm your first PhD student. Yeah. So I just want to, when you did the research around, because I was part of Virtuals at the start, I was in that journey. When you did the research on, the users. So looking at the location, Abuja, the city of power. So have we tried to consider looking at other locations, that are local compared to Abuja in terms of acceptability? Take, for instance, some towns there in because since you said it was a result of social class, maybe the location. Do you try to look at the locations?
Well, the simple answer to that question is no. Well, no, not no. Yes, but again, we're academics, right? There are lots of things we're chasing. We need to get which grant is. You need to think which grant is most likely to be funded. All right, and then that's where you will go. And then also, so the relocation of Abuja was strategic because I knew I was bringing foreigners, think about security, transport, all those sort of things. So some of those things are not as straightforward as you will think, but yeah, it's some. Well, if I had a blank check, yes, I would definitely roll out stuff in my village actually.
Thank you very much. So I'd now like to invite Dr. Boshan Tijani, the Honourable Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to give a vote of thanks. Just as an introduction, Dr. Tijani was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and later studied at the University of Jos. Firstly, studying a diploma in computer science, I'm really pleased to hear that, before going on to study economics, graduating with a bachelor's degree in 2002. He later obtained a Master of Science in Information Systems and Management from the Warwick Business School. Again, as a computer scientist and a professor of information systems, pleased to hear that as well. In 2023, Dr. Tijani earned a PhD in Innovation and Economic Development from the School of Business, University of Leicester. Not so sure about that. With that, his doctoral research focused on contributing to a better understanding of how the network perspective to innovation capacity could provide a contextually relevant framework for explaining the adoption and adaptation of innovation in developing countries, and specifically offer an alternative path to how African countries could effectively organize their innovation ecosystems. He's also been a part of the Innovation for Economic Development Executive Program at Harvard Kennedy School in 2013, as well as being a 2014 Draper Hills Fellow of the Center for Democracy Development. He's had a long and very prestigious career working in major projects with international trade centers in Geneva, Switzerland, and with Hewlett-Packard. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think you probably all accept and agree with me that it's an extreme honor and privilege to give this remark, because Muyiwa's journey is one that is extremely exciting, as we've all seen. And I think on that note, Muyiwa, I'd like to show my appreciation for you allowing yourself to be used in the manner that you've been used. And of course, to choose the topic that you've actually chosen today, I think it's a special one. It's often tempting to want to go extremely academic about these things. But I have to tell you, given my personal journey and where I am today, I think you're being brave and you're talking to a real solution to problems, not just in Africa, but the entire world at the time we live in today. I believe that everyone in the room, you probably agree with me that Muyiwa's work in sustainable development is extremely commendable and serves as an inspiration to many, of course, including myself, to continue to believe in the power that we hold to create impact on everyday lives in Africa, and I think beyond Africa as well, and I'll explain why I believe so. For that, as well as this powerful lecture today, if you don't mind, I'll ask that you rise to help me give the sound and standing of the Thank you, everyone. I think I'd also like to, of course, thank all of you, distinguished guests, colleagues of Muyiwa, students, friends, and family for being here today. Your presence is not just only to honor Muyiwa, but also affirms our collective commitment toward advancing knowledge and also fostering sustainable solutions for the common good of the world we all live in. I think if you're not thinking about it, I'll encourage and implore that we all step back and recognize that we live in an unprecedented times. If you're not sure how, you probably know of the numerous challenges that is facing our world today, from growing food insecurity to environmental challenges, inequality in healthcare, poverty. I think even in the UK, it's not just something that is unique to Africa any longer. Geopolitical conflict, and so many. We should recognize that the solutions to these challenges that we face in the world we live in today, we can't find them in working in silos. It's impossible. And you can look at the political atmosphere, even in the UK, and look at leadership all over the world. And you realize that leaders are faced with challenges that are somewhat new to all of us. But at the same time, we also have the opportunity that technology and science offers for us to be able to reimagine the world we live in today. At a minimum, if you think of artificial intelligence and the power that it gives us to be able to do things differently, take knowledge into consideration, process data more smartly, and as such be able to take informed decisions, you'll probably agree with me that the solution to many of our problems you will not find within the cabinets. Because as you know, people in cabinets are oftentimes, and most of the time, if not all of them, elected. And they're not the best of people to show the path to finding solutions to many of the challenges that we face. So if we've been in a position where we struggle to actually understand our role as a community, particularly the academic space, I think this is the time that we need to understand that there's no future for the world we live in if we don't step up and actually show leadership. I spent last week in both Palo Alto in San Francisco, or in Bay Area, if I may say, and also in DC as well. Spent time at Stanford discussing as the only minister amongst, I think, about 20 or 30 people, some very crazy people in artificial intelligence, from OpenAI to Google to Meta, people from Stanford University and from the US government as well. And the conversation was an atom for peace. For those who understand the nuclear proliferation and what came and what that meant for the world. We weren't discussing nuclear proliferation, we were discussing artificial intelligence. But people who truly care about AI looked at this technology from the perspective of nuclear proliferation. That's the power that it's got to help us shape the world that we live in, but also it can also change our society significantly as well. Why am I bringing this up? The people at the top end of trying to figure out one of the most deeply impactful technologies in the world are some of the best academics in the world today, not those in politics. So we won't be able to fix the world we live in and all these new challenges that we're facing that we all don't have answers to if the best people from these sort of institutions are not talking about working together. So this may not be rated as the best inaugural speech in this university today, but perhaps if you step back and think about it thoroughly, you will agree with me that this is a timely talk. And there's no future without us working together. So again, I'd like to thank you, Muyiwa, for allowing yourself to do this. So if I continue in particular, I want to highlight the role of academics, I've said this, in finding solutions to these pressing challenges. Academics offer an approach that is informed and evidence-based, ensuring that we take on the world's problems from a position of knowledge. So we can't be fixing these problems if we truly don't know what we're talking about. I think Muyiwa mentioned a few things about, we didn't figure that out. We didn't think about that. But then the good thing about you is you didn't step out thinking you're going to start building millions of these houses. You were doing it from a place of research. And that's the difference between those who want to make money and those who are looking for answers to challenges that we face in society, which is, again, why the things we do, they're extremely important. Professor Oyinlola's lecture today showcased the importance of the approach to bringing academia into solution by highlighting the critical themes and actionable insights
its focus on collaboration, community engagement as critical components of sustainable development reminds us that our greatest achievements as humans are often derived from collective effort. By working together, we can indeed go far and create lasting impacts. As the saying goes, which is quite popular on our side, but I think it's everywhere in the world now, it does take a village, and it's going to take a village to truly make our world what we need it to be. Reflecting on your journey, Muyiwa, a journey that I can personally speak to, it is evidence that your work is not only focused on advancing academic knowledge, as we've seen from a lot of your papers, you've actually done that, but you also bring real impact to communities as well. And you've given food for thought for so many other researchers to actually go ahead and try to help understand and add to the body of knowledge. Your projects are deeply rooted in local realities, deeply rooted. Of course, we also saw that you went the route of not remembering that our people live on class first before solving poverty issues. And that nobody will want to live in a house that is visibly constructed from plastic. But you give yourself the opportunity to make that mistake and also learn from it as well. Looking ahead, I encourage everyone in the room to be inspired by your story and by the future direction of both your research and the research of other people that are around the work you do. Be seen as an inspiration for how we do sustainable development. Your vision and dedication, I believe, should be a guiding light for most of us, if not all of us in the room today. And particularly for students and young researchers who are just starting out. Your journey for the young ones is modeled after what we've seen from Professor Oyinlola. Will be marked by the pursuit of knowledge and a commitment to making impact wherever you find yourselves. I'm a big believer in that. I think it's the secret to being successful in whatever you set out to do. Most people don't know that. People think it's about making money or actually accelerating career. I think if you focus on impact, you'll never get it wrong. As we conclude, let us take with us the key messages of today's lecture. The importance of collaboration and shared effort in addressing the pressing challenges of sustainable development in the world we live in today. Again, I'd like to thank you, Professor Oyinlola, for your lecture and for setting an inspired example of the role of academia in impacting sustainable development in our communities. I look forward, of course, with confidence to your continued success. Thank you all for your attention, and I believe that there's going to be drinks in the atrium, and we can continue the conversation. So, thank you.
Inspiring talk, they're really, really inspiring, and thank you very much as well, Dr. Kiani. Please join us all for a great reception in the atrium.